Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks for joining this instance of the Antrea community meeting. Today is Tuesday, May the 9th. And the agenda for today, we have a couple of topics. A general update on the status of the 1.12 release, and this will be led by Chan. And then we have a conversation about a change for Windows in Kubernetes 1.26, where user space is being user space support is being removed from kubeproxy, and therefore the Antrea proxy will take over responsibilities such as all the responsibilities which are currently held by the kubeproxy. And I think that perhaps Wenning will take care of discussing this. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay, so do we have any other topic for today? Any announcement you'd like to make before we start with today's agenda? Sounds good. I will say that then we can start with an overview of the status of the 1.12 release. And Chan, please go ahead.
Wayne, could you start first? I think let's introduce the progress of Antrea proxy on Windows, and then I could update the status. I'm still preparing some list of the status update.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Let me share my screen. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Well, actually, this topic is about use Antrea proxy on Windows to replace kubeproxy user space mode. The motivation includes that the major reason is that Kubernetes has dropped kubeproxy user space mode on Windows since version 1.26. So that means that we cannot use kubeproxy user space anymore in the future. And we have to switch to Antrea proxy all. That is because that auto kubeproxy has another mode, in kernel modes on Windows, but Antrea cannot co-work with that mode. The reason is that Antrea needs to use Open vSwitch extension on the HS network, which was used for running pods, but for kubeproxy kernel modes, it requires a VFP extension. It is different from OS extension. And for the Windows HS network, it requires that only one extension can be enabled on the single network. So that means we have to switch to Antrea proxy all. And if we want to enable Antrea proxy all on the Windows nodes, the key configurations include that. So we should enable Antrea proxy feature gates, and we need to set proxy off like as true. In fact, Antrea proxy is already enabled on Windows for many releases, but for Antrea proxy all enablement, it is a new configuration if we want to enable the proxy all feature. And a second change in the configuration is that we have to set the kube or API server override with the address of the kube API server. Here we cannot use the cluster IP service of the Kubernetes service. We must ensure that Antrea agents can use this address to access the API server directly. For example, in some cluster, we may use the kube VIP address for the API server. And if we want to enable Antrea proxy all, one known issue I want to highlight in this community meeting is that we used to hit a Windows besought issue in Antrea version 1.10.0 release after proxy all is enabled. For for the current status of the issue, it is fixed now, but I want to highlight it here is because I want to introduce some observations and recalls and patches about it, so that if anybody in the future hit the same issue, maybe it can switch the release versions to a new release. For the issue, the observations include that we observe a besort happened on the Windows node randomly with an Antrea agent restart case. In fact, it may happen when we restart Antrea agent and we see that Antrea agent is started running in the restart case. And we also observe that when we capture packets on the server side, on the Kubernetes service or Antrea service, we saw that some TCP acknowledgement packets are not captured on the server side. Here, the TCP ACK packets are not for the handshake stage, but for the payload ACK. And a third observation is that we found that several service-related route entries are lost on the Windows host. After some troubleshooting, we found that the root cause related is on the unknown issue that the Windows service routes may be broken on the node. And here I paste the issue link. The root cause that previously we have two routines to process the routing entries, and one is used to add the new service related routes, and another is used to delete the stale routes. Because the two routines run in parallel, so in some cases, the new added routes may be removed by mistake by the other routines. So in that case, the service-related routes are missing. Then the service traffic sent from Antrea agent to Kubernetes service or to the Antrea service may be not able to find the routing entries and maybe not forwarded correctly. By now we have two patches to fix the issue. And the first one for the 4470 is already merged in the Antrea release 1.11, and it is also backported to the previous versions of previous releases from the 1.10. And the second one is recently fixed by Quan, and by now it is also merged in the main branch, and the backported patches are submitted and ready for review. Then about the next step to enable proxy all on Windows includes this. Firstly, we need to enable proxy all in Windows manifest, and the second is that we need to run tests with proxy all flags in the CI. That is my contents. And any questions?
No question from me. Then any question from the rest of the team?
May I know why this issue will cause Windows BSOD? It sounds like it should not cause any. Yeah, please.
Sorry?
I mean, it's kind of wrong configuration. Yeah.
Yeah, perhaps I could answer this question. We had a theory, but we haven't validated. It must be that reason. But let me share our investigation first. On Windows, in release 1.10.0, as we mentioned, there was an issue that some routes may be deleted by mistake. However, today we also found that the issue was also reproducible in 1.11.1, which already fixed the root deleting problem. That's without the latest patch I made last week. And after that patch is merged, the never was not reproduced so far. So perhaps it's related to the traffic that is being redirected to OpenWSwitch, but was not handled because Antrea policy hasn't installed the open flows for the service IPs. On Windows, the OS user space doesn't run as part of the Antrea agent port. It's a standalone process. So we thought that even we restart Antrea agent, the service flows should be there and should be installed by the last round, should still be there and should be able to continue processing the traffic to the service. However, after some tests, we found that after Antrea agent starts up, the service flows are gone. And I found that it's because the service group, we have a service group clean up on Antrea agent startup, and that operation cleans up all service groups, open flow groups in OpenWSwitch. And you know, the service Antrea proxy depends on the service group, and even the open flows referring to that groups will be deleted. So it didn't work as we expect. Every time Antrea agent starts up and there is a time window, the traffic to the service IP will not be processed correctly and will be treated as normal traffic towards external IPs because they are not port IPs and they are not node IPs. So we treat them as external IPs, and perhaps the final action of those traffic will be again redirected to Antrea gateway interface from OpenWSwitch. In this situation, there may be a circle that in the host network namespace, we install routes to redirect traffic towards service IP to OpenWSwitch. But in OpenWSwitch, before Antrea policy is ready, we redirect the traffic back to the host network namespace. And we don't know whether this causes problems on Linux yet, but on Windows, this may cause some very high CPU usage and memory usage, and eventually lead to system crash. That's our theory, but we haven't proved it yet. And maybe we should also check on Linux how this will behave. And the key of the latest patch is that we only generate traffic towards the service IP after Antrea policy is ready. This guarantees that if the Antrea agent generates a packet to service IP, it will be redirected to OpenWSwitch, and in OpenWSwitch, it will always be processed correctly and netted to one of the endpoint.
I got the explanation. Thanks a lot.
And perhaps this may indicate some other potential issues because we, in the latest release 1.11 and all release after that, we use a single bigger cluster IP CIDR as the destination IP of the root for service IPs, which means that, for example, if the service CIDR we calculated is 10.196.0.0, and if the agent or any port tries to access one service IP, one IP in that block, but it is not a real service IP. The packet may be circle, maybe looped in a circle between host network and open switch still. Yeah. And we need to verify what's the consequence, and if it could lead to another system panic. Yeah. And that's one general issue we need to further investigate. And another potential issue is that previously we thought that the open flows will be kept on Antrea agent start, but it seems that it will be removed. So if some traffic needs the flows installed by Antrea proxy, we need to ensure all of them must be run after Antrea proxy. That applies to Linux as well. Okay, I think that's all of the about this problem. Any other questions? Winnie and I can answer.
I think your answer was very exhaustive, but let's see if there is any other question. Three, two, and the time's up. Okay, so we know what's the status here and what we need to do. And I have to say it's probably not the feature that we were looking to develop, but it doesn't seem that we have any choice here. We have to do it. All right, so maybe we can move to the general update on the 1.12 release, Chan.
Sure, let me share my screen.
Thanks.
Okay, currently we still have 20 PRs in progress, and I made some list based on the areas. Let's take a look at each area. The first is 2 PRs about Antrea proxy. The first one introduced support for external IP support in Antrea proxy. I think this is the only missing part from functions perspective currently Antrea has. I think we just missed this handling this field, and it's not by intention. And I think Hongliang found the problem by running some Kubernetes SIG network tests. Each service could have one or more external IPs defined in its spec, and in kubeproxy they also proxy these IPs, and by this patch Antrea proxy will do the same. And I have reviewed this patch. I think there's no risk for this one. It's a simple change. And another is a behavioral change in Antrea proxy. Previously, we if external IP is if the load balance or node port service external traffic policy is local, we will always let me see. Yeah, we will always sorry, it is cluster. Sorry, Hongliang, could you remind me what's the previous behavior and what's the latest behavior we want to change? I didn't quite remember the detail.
Not sure. I think Hongliang is not in the call.
Okay, then let me simply describe the change. It's about how we handle the traffic from port and from external. I think this patch changes the behavior to align with the kube-proxy that it always learn bands the traffic from local port to external IP or node port to the whole cluster instead of respecting the external traffic of the service, external traffic policy of the policy. The reasoning behind it is if there's no short circuiting, the packets will reach the external load balancer and will eventually be distributed to endpoints across the whole cluster. So when Antrea proxy does proxy the external IPs, you should do the same instead of only proxying to local endpoints, I think. Yeah. And it's the current kube-proxy behavior and is defined in SIGNet network test. And the second major area is network policy. We had 4 features improvement in this area, and the first, I think, is to support IP-based group association query API. And unfortunately, I didn't get enough time to review this part so far, and it's on my list, and perhaps I will do it in today. Yeah, and any reviews from the other reviewers and maintainers are welcome. And currently, I think these patches are lack of reviews. And the second is from a user requested feature, adding log label to the net policy logins. And so to the third part, I think this is to keep aligned with some networking firewall products that user could also match the source ports in net policy API. And this is the last one is to implement the proposed feature by upstream network policy V2 API, I think. And according to Yang, I think the first 3 should be prioritized, and the last one may need more review effort because it's a big change. And the third area is the multi-cluster. I saw that most of the patches are approved, and perhaps it's just a validating effort for the for these tools, and I guess the first one is Antrea test for the last one, and what do you think about the second patch? Do you think it's in good stage?
I think Jianjun left a few comments. I have adjusted them. I think not a big change, so I suppose it should be no risk.
Okay, thank you. And the fourth area is about cleaning up some tech debt and some minor improvements in various areas. The first is to switch to packaging 2 to make the code easier to maintain and to be more extensive. And it already got approved from some reviewers. The second, I think it's an improvement in Windows cleanup script to fix some issues occurred in some scenario, I guess. And I think this one, yeah, this doesn't introduce new features, but to make the code more robust in some scenario that we didn't need the some API service and webhooks. The last one is a big improvement in the memory usage of Antrea agent. It removes some unnecessary cache from Antrea agent, and I think the improvement is about 100 megabits and more megabits memory reduction with this number of OpenFlow entries. But it's a big change, so we should review it carefully. Yeah, and next error is Windows. I just confirmed that this is preparation for containerizing OS in Windows, but not planned for this release. So I think merging this in this release is our best effort and doesn't affect the release note or any user features. And we have just mentioned this one previously. And next is about test. We have 3 PRs for unit tests for these packages again, and I guess they have been deferred several times. For example, this one, it has been nearly half a year, so maybe let's try to include them in this release. And I see this one has already been uploaded, so there should be no risk for this one. And the last one is documentation improvement for using Antrea with Rancher cluster. I guess no real risk for this one. Okay. Yeah, it's a small change. Okay. That's the current status of Antrea release 1.12. Yeah. I guess we need to improve the efficiency of reviewing and spend more time on it. I will also spend more time in the following 2 weeks. Currently, we have 2 days or 2 weeks and 1 day left for the release. Any questions about the release?
No, that your description was very, very clear. Let me see. Let's see if anybody else from the team has any question, especially if you have any PR in flight that was not a list here, so that you believe should be included to the release plan. Okay, it seems that then the description of the status of the 1.12 release is very clear for everyone, which means that we can move to open discussion if anybody else has any topic that you would like to propose or they would like to bring up for discussion with the team. I'll wait a few seconds in case anybody has a proposal. Three, 2, 1, 0. And so it might be all for today. So it seems that this might be the end of today's meeting, and I would like to thank Wenning and Chan for bringing up the topics for discussion today, and we will meet again in 2 weeks' time. So thanks a lot for joining, and I wish everybody a great evening or a good afternoon.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.